What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. All right, let's move on to Cavs Clippers. So the Clippers, big test for them last night, an opportunity to legitimize some of their recent success. The Clippers had won 6 out of 7, including a 3-game winning streak against Detroit, New York, and Sacramento, playing some really good ball. They're top 5 in both offense and defense in that span. Kawhi Leonard has started to look stronger. They're just coming together, right? But the Cavs present a real challenge, particularly on the offensive end, because they can just be so difficult to keep up with. And the Cavs made it abundantly clear right out the gates of this game that they were going to make it very difficult to keep up with them. They came out and laced 3 straight threes. Max Strus hit 2 in a row. Darius Garland laces a 3 off the dribble. They hit 45 points in the first quarter. And so pretty quickly, the game took on the feel of a shootout. I talk a lot about the concept of winning games in different ways. Why? Because in the playoffs, you got to beat 4 different teams in a 7-game series, usually 4 very different types of opponents. In one round, you might face like a big physical defense that drags you down into the mud. Everybody's legs are tired. Jumpers stop falling, and it turns into like winning a rock fight, right? But then in the next round, you might fight against a thinner, faster team that plays really fast and scores a lot of points, and it becomes more about your offensive firepower and your ability to keep up with your perimeter speed. Even just stars can present different challenges. Oh, this team has, Nikola Jokic or Ivica Zubac, right? A big, strong center that we have to match up. Or maybe it's a super quick guard like Darius Garland. Like, how are we going to keep Darius Garland from getting out of his spots? Every team presents different types of challenges. That's why it's so important to be able to win different types of ways. I thought this particular game was a test of the Clippers' offensive firepower. Cleveland is the best offense in the league. And while the Clippers did have some success against their offense late in the game, by getting some stops for 2.5 quarters, the Cavs were just red hot. They were in the zone. Sometimes that's just how it is. It's not like Chris Dunn and Kawhi Leonard weren't guarding at the start of the game. It's just good offense beats good defense every time. So sometimes you're kind of just hanging on for dear life. And you just have to find a way to score at a similar pace just to weather the storm until they cool off and start missing shots, or until your defense settles in and you start making them uncomfortable. That's what I mean when I say the game took on a feel of a shootout. Like, the Clippers were just trying to keep up for the first 2.5 quarters of that game. Now, in order for you to be able to consistently score against a good defense, and again, we've talked a lot about the Cavs offense. They're 7th in defense. It's not an exceptional defensive team, but they're a very good defensive team. And if you're going to generate consistent offense against a top 10 defense like that, you need to have a bunch of different guys that can generate quality shots from a bunch of different types of actions or sequences. And the Clippers proved that they were more than capable last night. Kawhi looked absolutely amazing. It's crazy because like a few weeks ago, he just didn't look good physically. It looked like he wasn't getting lift. It looks like his base was getting disrupted by basically every team that he ran into. Last night, the Clippers play-by-play guy said on the broadcast, quote, "This is the Kawhi Leonard we know and remember, and this is the Kawhi Leonard we need." And he was absolutely right. Kawhi had 33, 7, and 4 with 4 steals. He was 12 for 19 from the field, 5 for 6 from 3. Several specific types of plays that I thought were great signs of the improving strength of his base. And again, that's always been where Kawhi beats people. He's got such a strong base that he's dislodging you from your base, and he's getting such great lift that he can knock down consistently pull-up jump shots from everywhere on the floor and get to the rim. He's just that pure 3-level scorer that you can't keep from his spots. You can see the base strength coming together with some of these types of plays. He had a tap-in offensive rebound putback on a shot that he missed where he beat everyone else back up off the floor on his second jump. That's always a sign of athletic dominance. When you can win on the second jump, that was a big sign. He hit a right shoulder fade over Dean Wade. Big shot late in the game. Dean Wade defends him super well, gets a great contest. Kawhi has to fade dramatically over his right shoulder, but he just gets excellent lift. And if you watch the shot, he gets such great lift that even though he's drifting away from the basket, his body is perfectly still and balanced while he's rising up and knocking down that shot. He had another right shoulder fade over Evan Mobley late. It was a different kind of fade. It was like a quick spinning fade out of a drive. And like, once again, look at his balance. And that's a great sign because those quick spins, those quick moves, those are the hardest moves to stop your body and get balance as you're coming up off the ground. All night long, he just looked like Kawhi. We know that at his best, he has this like scissor dribble combination that he'll go to for pull-up threes where he'll just pound the ball between his legs and just go straight up into a three out of it. He does it out of a couple different footworks and a couple of different dribble combinations, but it's basically it's like a live dribble jab step where he'll like use that between the legs dribble to essentially jab and get the defender to take a step back so that he can just rise up and knock it down. He was hitting that all night long. He just looked great. James Harden was really smart with his attacks all night. He was using guard screens to get favorable matchups before getting into ball screens, and then he was attacking those guards in ISO as well. He didn't shoot the ball super well, but he got to the line 11 times, so he finished with 22 points and 9 assists with 0 turnovers. That's a pretty damn good James Harden game. But it wasn't just those two guys. Bogdan Bogdanović had one of his best games as a Clipper. Some nice secondary shot creation with the bench group. He also closed the game with James Harden and Kawhi and did some really nice connective playmaking. He was being guarded by Garland. So Kawhi was trying to attack Garland by bringing Bogdanović into the action as a screener. At first, they try to hedge and recover, which is the most common coverage that you'll see teams use when you've got a small, quick guard that a team's trying to attack. Because quickness is the ability to rotate, right? He can throw a hedge and he can get out of there as quick as possible. Garland hedges, Bogdanović slips, Kawhi throws the pass to him. He makes a nice read out to James Harden in the corner. James Harden gets a closeout, drives the closeout, and makes the floater. That is that like excellent breaking down, that incremental breaking down of the defense, right? Kawhi draws 2. Bogdanović extends the advantage with a nice kick out read. Harden gets a closeout that he scores against with a driving floater. Getting 3 high-level offensive players in those sequences makes them more resilient against better defense, right? Then after the hedge didn't work, they just straight up blitz Kawhi with Darius Garland. Floated out to Bogdanović. He beats Donovan Mitchell, who rotates to the top. He gets into the lane and hits that tough floater that he knocked down in the lane. He was 8 for 8 in this game for 20 points. That's how you're going to keep up in a shootout. All of those offensive initiation points that you have, all of those connective playmaking pieces, all the play finishing coming together, right? And then there was Zubac. Zubac has been sneaky kicking the shit out of some of the best centers in the league all year. I saw a tweet last night that he's hung 20 and 20 on a bunch of the all-star centers, and that's not exactly true, but it's close enough to true. He had 21 and 22 against Wemby. He had 20 and 19 against Jaren Jackson. He had 21 and 19 against Anthony Davis. 23 and 18 against Draymond. And then last night he puts up 28 and 20 against Jarrett Allen. And it was just as bad for Jarrett as it looked on the box score. Zubac whooped his ass. Straight up scored on him in the post a bunch of times, one-on-one. Just absolutely butchered him on the offensive glass. Shot goes up. He was just leaning on him and just shoved him out of his spot, getting whatever he wanted. He had 8 offensive rebounds in the game. There's a huge play late. Cleveland cuts the lead to 7 and gets 2 stops in a row against the Clippers offense. But on both plays, Zubac just wrecking balls into the lane and taps the ball out, and they keep the ball alive 2 times in a row. He was hitting shots in the roll-off of Harden. He was ducking in on cuts. He was just an absolute monster. He kicked Jarrett Allen's ass. There's no way around it. So the question is, why does Zubac keep kicking ass against some of the best bigs in basketball? It's an interesting part of the way the modern game has changed at the center position. As things have changed with pace and the way teams run up and down the floor and attack and ball screens with rim runners and vertical spacers, we've seen a massive increase in these like thinner rim running types of bigs. Jarrett Allen and Mobley are great examples. Victor Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, Anthony Davis kind of fits this mold. Rudy Gobert, Derek Lively. That type of guy has become way more common in the league as the league has become faster, more of a transition game, more of a pick and roll, rolling hard to the rim. You need vertical spacing type of league. Back in the day, there were 2 or 3 huge bruising centers on every team. Now half the teams in the league don't even have a guy like that. I actually think it plays a role in how dominant a guy like Nikola Jokic is in this era. And by the way, I don't mean that as a shot at Jokic. It actually reminds me a lot of the dynamic with Michael Jordan in the 90s. Back then, teams were so loaded up on size and strength that overwhelming quickness was a game breaker in a lot of ways that Michael Jordan took advantage of. These days, the league is so loaded up on quickness that size and strength can be a game breaker. And that is how guys like Zubac and Jokic, to a much greater extent, have had a lot of success. If you're really, really big and strong, and you have the footwork to actually use that physical leverage and the touch and the IQ to make teams pay by winning ground battles, you're going to win a lot of battles in this league. It's a matchup problem for a lot of these teams. Zubac is just too big and strong for these guys. I heard Fran Fraschilla, who was doing the color commentary last night, he was saying after the game that, or early in the game on Zoo's first post up, he's like, he literally said, he's just too much for him. He can't hold his ground. And it really was that simple. So you get great offensive games from Kawhi, Zoo, and Bogdanovic. You get a good game from Harden. Even Norman Powell in his limited minutes, I mean, he played 18 minutes and dropped 11 points. In a 36-minute game, that's 22 points. I mean, that's a high offensive output for a limited role. That allowed them to keep up with that red-hot scoring effort from the Cavs. But there in the late third quarter, their defense finally started to settle in. I thought Derrick Jones Jr. was instrumental in this stretch. Had some great reps on both Garland and Mitchell. Kawhi, I thought, was great all night on Donovan Mitchell. The Clippers really started to force some more difficult shot angles from the guards that forced some misses. That was what triggered their run when they started to pull away. We talked a lot about their offense earlier, but the Clippers held the Cavs to just 19 points over the final 15 minutes and change of this game. It was just a really impressive win for the Clippers. And here's the thing. We can't completely write off this upside that they're showing. This team build always had this capability of putting everything together, and suddenly Kawhi gets his leg strength and just stays healthy. And like, what if Kawhi just stays healthy to mid-June? Well, then they're absolutely a threat. It's just going to be really difficult to shake the pessimism that surrounds Kawhi and his health. This time last year, he was kicking ass too, and so were the Clippers. March 29th of last season in Orlando, Kawhi drops 29, 11, and 5 with 4 steals and 2 blocks. Goes 12 for 21 from the field and 3 for 6 from 3. Looks incredible. He played one more game that season and we didn't see him again. So it is what it is. There's a version of this story where Kawhi holds up and the Clippers are a real threat, but that question mark is just always going to be there with them. On the Cleveland front, I had a bunch of Cavs fans pissed off at us the other day for talking about some of their struggles with size against Orlando. Most of it was people just getting hung up on a title. But I want to be clear, like, I wasn't saying the Cavs as a team got exposed and that they're fraudulent or anything like that. I just think that there's value in looking at why a team is struggling because it helps us learn about them. It's so rare for a team like Boston last year or Denver the year before to kind of run through the playoffs without facing much in the way of adversity. The vast majority of the time, you're going to find yourself trailing in a playoff series, even if you win the title. That's what happened to the 2022 Warriors. That's what happened to the 2021 Bucks. That's what happened to the 2020 Lakers. That's what happened to the 2019 Raptors. Even the 2018 Warriors trailed in a playoff series. The 2016 Cavs trailed. The 2015 Warriors trailed. Like, usually, adversity is a part of the grind all the way through to the finish line. There's no perfect basketball team in the NBA that just beats the shit out of anybody and everybody. And so with that being the case, again, that does happen occasionally. It's rare though. And again, like even with a team like Boston, like part of it was they caught some favorable matchups along the way. There's a version of that where they win the title, but it looks tougher if they have to face Denver and Milwaukee, right? So like it's one of those things where when we're talking about these flaws with these teams, it's just about learning so that we can try to figure out what makes them struggle so we can at least identify that sort of thing when it pops up down the line. Once again, last night, they struggled with size. Zubac kicked Allen's ass, but similar to the Orlando game, I was talking about how their perimeter size caused issues for the Cavs guards. The length of Kawhi, the length of Derrick Jones Jr., the overall size of the Clippers on the floor. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell went just 11 for 32. Kawhi on the offensive end, showed a relatively easy willingness to target Cleveland's perimeter players and get pretty easy over-the-top shots. They chewed Cleveland up and spit them out on the glass. It's just worth keeping an eye on. When we see Cleveland struggle in the playoffs, this is probably what it will look like. Bigger physical teams, especially on the perimeter, making life tough for them, making them feel like they're playing in a crowd and leading to some inefficiency from their guards. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting me and supporting the show. We are back tonight after the final buzzer of Nuggets-Lakers. We have our course correction segment that we're also doing there. Plan on hitting at least another team or two in that show as well. So make sure you guys come hang out later tonight live on YouTube. I'll see you guys then.